smells like oranges in the summertime. I can't find the words to divide us. I can't sing the notes to sustain us. How can I make you stay? Your hair smells like oranges in the summer night. Soft breeze blown from the sea, stripped clean as if we'd never seen the stars like this before. In the dark we sing like angels in the hour of the gods. I am there as I was there, trying to wrestle with the demons, clear the conscience of the remnants, trace the sand backwards where the memory is blue. Your hair smells like oranges in the summer light. Gold shades, roses inflamed, heat waves hang over the time. I reach out to touch the divine, but it's all in my mind. My mind, my mind, my mind, my mind, my mind, my mind, my mind. I'm there as I was there, trying to wrestle with the demons, clear the conscience of the remnants, trace the sand backwards where the memory is blue.
Oh, hello there, Sydney.
Hi.
Long time no chat.
I know, right? Are we live?
I do believe we are live.
All right.
Yeah. Well, it's
All right,
absolutely
cool. How are we going to do this? Are we doing like one song at a time or?
I think we can roll with that.
All right, cool.
Yep,
Yeah,
it
I
was
could have
incredible
thought
to
we
hear
just
Orange
like
singing.
roll through the whole performance, but this works too.
You know, better for me. I get to interview you faster this way.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
I guess to start out with, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben. Obviously, I think that's pretty clear from the setup here. But I'm Chief Operating Officer at the Hope for Us Network, and I have the incredible honor of speaking with the one and only Sydni Budelier today. So let's not waste any time, because there's a lot to talk about. Sydni, we've known each other for a few years now. I think like
Yeah.
three and a half years, something like that, right?
Yeah, at least three now, and we worked together
3 and now
for
4.
two.
Yep, yep. Good, a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to witness and learn about snippets of your background, life, and of course your powerfully moving music. So I'm curious to just set the stage and start out with where were you born, and what was it like to grow up there for you?
Yeah, so I was born in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is central Wisconsin. And what was it like to grow up there? Honestly, I had a pretty idyllic childhood. I grew up on a lake, and I have such fond memories of my youth, especially in, the summertime in Wisconsin. I have these memories of, hanging out with my brother and playing these make believe games where, we would run back and forth from the lake to the swing set to the woods to, we'd run up and down the driveway coloring with chalk, and we'd ride our bikes. And it was just this time in my life that, was so like imbued with the freedom of youth. And it felt like there was so much possibility for something magical to happen around every corner. And, obviously, like, I'm sure you can tell, I like really romanticized my childhood. And, as an adult, I would kind of come back to those memories as, my happy place. I would fantasize about that time in my life because I just thought that that was like the best time. Things were so much more simple. And again, there was just that feeling of possibility. And it was that feeling that really inspired my song, Land of Make Believe, which is the first song that I ever released. And it's the title track of my first album. Returning to that feeling of possibility became very important in my life. Because it gave me a lot of hope during times in my life where, I was dealing with some really challenging things. I was in an abusive relationship, and, I had to recover from that. And, during my recovery process, I think I really had to put myself in the frame of mind where I could imagine a better life for myself. So I came back to that feeling of possibility. And if I could believe that, there was something better and brighter and more magical out there for me, maybe it would come true. And, it really helped me to keep moving forward.
Imagination and sense of possibility is so vital to not only the human spirit but to creativity overall, which is itself vital, I think, to what it means to be human. Um,
Absolutely.
I know that in our last in Carl's interview with Selena Lee, that was a point that that they really emphasized that she initially brought up, finding our own art forms. Um, I'm curious when it came to college and academia, extracurriculars. How did you find yourself relating to creativity and music at those points? Was that different at all from growing up a little bit earlier on?
Well, so as a kid, my being with creativity started from a super young age. I was in dance and gymnastics, and I performed in the community Christmas choir, which kind of turned into me performing in other local musical and theater productions. And I was in middle school and high school choir. And then I started taking voice lessons privately because I just loved to sing so much. And I should also note that, after, I guess I was 7 years old when I moved from Wisconsin to Arizona. So I spent a good portion of my life living and growing up in Arizona for 15 plus years. I graduated from Arizona State University. I graduated with an English creative writing degree with a concentration in fiction. And before I started college, I joined my first band. That started my senior year of high school. I was the front woman of a band that we called Emmett, and my bandmates were all part of the high school jazz band. And later, a couple of them went to Arizona State. And we wrote, original songs and did all kinds of covers. Even though they were jazz musicians, we would do, everything from Bus to Regina Spektor covers, and I continued to perform with them for several years into college. But I loved doing music and performing with the band. I felt like majoring or even minoring in music it wasn't necessary for me. I was pursuing a lot of other goals at the time too. I was pursuing a literary and editorial career. I did a bunch of stuff in college.
It's a lot. It's a wide spectrum.
Wrapped up into creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can kind of go over some of the things that I did. I was the editor-in-chief of Arizona State University's literary magazine, Superstitional Review. I was published and won a nonfiction award for a story I wrote in ASU's Honors College's literary magazine. I studied abroad in Italy, where I wrote for Florence University of the Arts newsletter and magazine. I also spent my last semester of college interning in New York City for Nylon magazine, where I worked with the print editorial team. So as much as I loved music, I had a lot going on and I had other goals.
It sounds like you, at the very least, you were in Arizona, then Italy, then New York City.
Oh yeah, I moved around a bunch.
That's incredible. It reminds me of the creative process that sometimes we go to, pulling a lot of things together, synthesizing, that kind of thing. Which also makes me really curious. Do you find that you've had major artistic influences, in the past, growing up, which have really shaped how you pursue artistic self-expression today?
Absolutely. Another way that my childhood was really unique is that there's not really a time in my life when, I don't remember being surrounded by art. My mom is a jeweler. So, when we lived in Wisconsin, while my brother and I were outside playing in the yard doing, whatever kids do, my mom was in her home studio, kind of locked away, making things. And it was always such a privilege to be able to, enter into her space, to be able to go into her studio. And she worked primarily with metals, with silver and gold and gemstones. So she was essentially like a metalsmith, and she had all these tools and like artifacts that as a kid I didn't know what they were. So my imagination just kind of ran wild, and I would imagine her just like wielding these tools to create beautiful things. And every time I went into her studio, she had these bins of scrap metal that I would dig through, and I'd find just interesting shapes in the metals, and I'd look at all of the gemstones, and I could just imagine all these tiny worlds inside each one of them. So there's that. And then when we moved to Arizona, my dad retired pretty young, and he was 40 when he kind of like unofficially retired and moved us out to Arizona. And my parents decided that they were going to build their dream home, and they had hired an architect that had studied at Taliesin West, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's, or was Frank Lloyd Wright's Winter, Arizona home. And now it houses a prestigious architectural school. So the architect that house studied there and is very Frank Lloyd Wright influenced, and was made up. The house was made up entirely of concrete block, glass, and oxidized copper, and was also designed around my parents' growing art collection, which was mostly made up of blown glass. So it was, a very unique environment to grow up in, and it was beautiful. The home was absolutely beautiful, and I have to be very careful when I talk about this, because I don't want to come across like I'm ungrateful, because I recognize the incredible privilege I had to grow up in that environment around so much culture, and also all of my physical needs were met. But it's also kind of an interesting paradox that, while I was surrounded by all of these, colorful, sometimes, loud by design, very large pieces of art that they took up a lot of space. Like some of the pieces were like statues that were bigger than me. And, I often felt that I had to be very quiet and subdued and obedient in that environment, because if I wasn't, there were consequences. I could break something, or my brother could break something, and we'd get in trouble, or we would hurt my parents, because I respected that the art was something that they cared a lot about. So we weren't allowed to run upstairs or get too rowdy like kids do sometimes, and it was a very stark contrast from what we'd previously experienced in Wisconsin, where we kind of had like free reign, like we could just run and play wherever we wanted. And also now we were in the desert, so it's a very different, very extreme environment. We went outside, we kind of had to watch out for cacti and wildlife that could kill you, like rattlesnakes and stuff. But I think that I gravitated towards singing instead of looking around and looking at all artwork and saying, oh, I want to be a glass blower like this artist, or oh, I want to be a painter. Instead, I wanted to be a singer, because I think it counteracted some of the silence and the silencing that I experienced. I could use my voice to emote, and just felt like I could kind of set myself free without being at all destructive.
That's such a huge contrast on a few levels, from Stevens Point, Wisconsin to Arizona. And the dream house for our parents, especially when we're kids, can really feel stifling, or it can be very, like you mentioned, it can be hard to emote, it can be hard to feel free in those kinds of circumstances. Or like you were talking about, at first, when it comes to your album Land of Make Believe, the sense of possibilities and the ability to dance among those possibilities and live out one's true creative self-expression. It's really hard to do that when you're not nested, but cramped within a house full of amazing, albeit amazing, but very, very beautiful statues that you don't want to knock over.
Yeah.
It's a huge contrast.
Yeah, it was limiting in some ways, even though in other ways it was really inspiring, because I was surrounded by work by artists who had plenty of things to express themselves.
Mm-hmm. it and you know what you said about singing becoming kind of a primary, I don't want to say the primary mode of self-expression that you created. Is that around when, or when did you feel and start to find that that kind of art, or art in general, would be a passion that you really wanted to follow and keep in your life, keep expanding, keep imagining through, living through?
Yeah. I think, well, like I said, art was a part of my life from the very beginning. There was never really any escaping it. Not that I ever wanted to.
Mhm.
But it was just, such a part of my life from, such a young age. It never even occurred to me that, it wasn't a part of me.
Mhm.
And I think it was in college when I really started looking at art and, my writing in particular, not just as a tool of self-expression, but as up to that I could hone and, I could utilize a literary skill set to, capture a reader or an audience's attention and immerse them in another world.
Yep.
And with music, I knew that I wanted to keep music in my life when, there were times when I couldn't fathom not having my keyboard with me. Like when, I got the opportunity to intern at Nylon in New York, and, there's not a whole lot of space in, a New York City walk-up apartment. And, all I brought with me was a suitcase full of clothes and my keyboard. And I remember hauling this keyboard up like 4 flights of stairs in a super narrow hallway. And no, it was so worth it though, because, anytime I would get off work and I'd, to decompress or whatever, I would just, sit down at the piano and play a little bit, or, write a melody. Like a melody would come to my mind and I would, just, play around on the piano trying to make something fit. And I just had, it was such a good tool to express whatever I was feeling at any given moment. Same thing when I moved to San Francisco. I moved to San Francisco pretty immediately after I graduated college, and I was so excited for, the opportunity to experience another new city and to see what other opportunities would be there for me. And unfortunately, I got very wrapped up in a horrible relationship that was, controlling and manipulative, and was becoming more and more physically abusive. And I had my keyboard with me, and I would regularly play music and write songs when my partner at the time was out of our apartment. And it was just this much needed release from all of the tension and anxiety I felt when I was around them. And some of my songs on my album came out of that time period. My songs Oranges and Iris of Noe Valley both came out of that time in my life. And then when I moved back to Arizona after getting out of that relationship, I kind of went back to Arizona wondering, what the fuck do I do next? I was pretty broken at the time. I was struggling to process what I had gone through, and felt like I didn't know up from down. I had lost my perspective on what love was. I lacked a lot of self-confidence because, one of the things I faced in my relationship was gaslighting. So I was, frequently told that, like, oh, you don't love me, or if you actually loved me, then you would do this and that, or you wouldn't talk to so and so. And it was just kind of like beat into my head that, like, no, like I didn't love this person, even though what I was feeling was love. And I became so desperate to show this person that I did care about them. And, it's a mess. And it was a very confusing time. And again, I had my keyboard, I had my voice, and I could just kind of sing it out at any given time. I could just kind of, sing whatever I was feeling, and it was such a release. And I got to a point where, I really wanted to collaborate with somebody again. I was ready to like bring in another person into my world, my, internal creative space. So I ended up reaching out to Brad, who, I so admired his voice and his music. I was a really big fan of his band, Audio Bakery. He was living in Chicago at the time, where he's from. And, I just reached out to him and asked him if he'd collaborate. And he said yes. And we started sending song ideas back and forth. And, through that type of communication, we really got to know each other. And I mean, the rest is history. I moved to Chicago in 2018. We got married in 2020. We bought our first house. He helped me produce my album, and now we're working on his solo album. And yeah, I'm just so excited. He's also invited me to be a part of his solo album, so I'll be singing on that, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, music was just, it was definitely my avenue to, to self-express.
Yeah, it really feels like something that helped you breathe in these times of incredible constriction. Music and that kind of self-expression or creativity strikes me as being really, we can choose to see it as being the opposite of something like gaslighting, which is trying to force us into a particular corner of reality that somebody else has shaped for their own ends. But this is collaborating with the right people. Somebody like Brad, having your piano, your voice is really the opposite of that. It's coming from yourself. It's unshackled. I'm really curious, Sydney. You mentioned a few things as far as kind of like the development of your creativity, and what I'm curious about is to talk to you about your creative evolutions. For example, what was your early creative work like? What's drawn you to your current aesthetic, your current artistic endeavors and styles? If you'd like to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah. Let's see. As far as like my early musical work, I mentioned I had spent a good deal of time like in middle school and high school. I started out singing with my choir groups, but the first time that I ever got on stage and sang a song outside of a group setting was with my friend Garrett, who he was really my brother's best friend. Mason and Garrett were like two peas in a pod. They were so goofy and just hilarious together. They definitely had a similar sense of humor, and they grew up together really. Like they learned how to skate together, and they would car together, and they would just kind of run around my parents' house to my shock and horror. just like being so silly.
Yeah.
But he was always over at our house, and he invited me to play a couple songs with him at this, high school. Our high school's like, it wasn't really a talent show, but it was like a talent showcase, and it was hosted by the school, but it was at this kind of old school diner burger shack called Big Earl's Greasy Eats in Cave Creek, which Cave Creek is where I went to school. It's just north of Scottsdale. And so Garrett and I performed a couple of songs, and we had so much fun doing it. And that's kind of how I became involved with my first band, because I think my friend Josh saw me perform, and shortly after that he asked if I wanted to start a band with him, and I said yes, and it was just the two of us at first, and then we added a couple more members, a couple other people who were in the high school jazz band, like I mentioned. And we would perform these Incubus covers. So yeah, my kind of best memory of first getting on stage is with Garrett. And sadly, Garrett passed away in March of 2019. He, sometime while I was in college, he had started using heroin, and he passed away from addiction in March of 2019. So he's no longer with us, and I felt like I needed to commemorate him on my album. So I have a song that's called "A Song for Garrett," and that one is for him. So yeah.
I know we're gonna try to get on second, third, and fourth songs. One of which is a song for Garrett right after we complete the interview.
Awesome.
I would really love to hear those again.
Yeah, and there's a question in that song. You'll hear it, when the rest of the performance plays. It's the second song that I perform, and one of the lyrics, I just ask, "Why can't you love it here?" And I recognize that is such an unfair question, but it was my truth. It's what I asked myself, because of course I wanted my friend to be happy here on Earth. I wanted more time with him. I wanted my brother to have more time with him. And as unfair of a question as it is, it's very reflective of a step in my own grieving process.
I suppose sometimes our grieving processes proceed in their own fashion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't think
it's different for everyone.
I don't think it reflects anything about our characters. It's hard. It's hard to lose somebody that we're close to. I'm curious if, zooming in a little bit, you'd like to talk about your current works. What have been motivations? You talked about a little bit about as to motivations for current work. And just so listeners are aware, Sydney's first debut album, Land of Make Believe, will be on screen at the end of our interview, closing things out. There are another 3 songs, as Sydney said, beginning with the song about her dear friend Garrett. So, but yeah, when it comes to like motivations and influences for your music, are there any other notes that you want to hit on there? Before I move into our last couple of questions, Sydney. Did I possibly lose you? I think we may have a little bit of a technical error unless it's on my side. Yeah, Mike, I completely. Thanks for saying that, Mike. Mike B in the chat there. Kigley, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is a beautiful gesture about Sid's friend Garrett. One thing we could possibly do, if it's possible for the network, is, yep. I think we could definitely do that. It's an amazing idea.
Sun spills from a memory, Sonoran garden, desert hideaway, behind the house we grew up in. Your hair is golden in the shade, your laugh sings melodies that can't fade, but you're reaching out for another hit, for joy you can't fix in this lifetime, for joy you can't fix in this lifetime. Always chasing a feeling that won't last, folding to moments of torture bliss. Why can't you love it here? Why can't you love it here? The desert sky spreads like a violent scar. Your guitar is silent after all, but you're still laughing in the sun, running with a smile towards the end of time. Why can't you love it here? Why can't you love it here? Iris opens in an alley above Noe Valley, forever blooming on the wall. I remember the parables and deep shades of indigo, how the flutter of the petals turned out to be a mural, and I swear I went crazy watching the East Bay below. I loved with all I had in San Francisco. I loved with all I had in San Francisco. towards Hate Street, a haven from the hatred in my home. But I fall down the hill with my bruises glittering like gold, and with the tumble, the yellow centers etched into my soul. So when I hit the bottom, I turn to make the trek alone. I load with all I had, San Francisco. 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 I load, 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 I love, I love. Had to set myself free in the morning. Ran through that dew like a child. Hair like angel thread in the daylight. Playing on the upswing of a summer's dream. Don't you ever need to get away? 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 Open the books to a new day. Sun pouring fluid in a warm escape. Bygone memories in a land of make-believe. How long can I float on imaginary wings? Don't you ever need to get away? 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 Don't you ever need to get high? Don't you ever need to get away? Don't you ever need to get high? Don't you ever need to get away? Had to set myself free in the morning.
Bravo.
Hey, we're back. I don't know what
Hello again.
happened earlier. I'm sorry I got cut off, but I'm glad everyone could enjoy the performance.
Everybody's lucky to be able to hear your music.
Thank you, Ben.
And I wanted to say, I have two more questions. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, Sydney, learning about your life, talking about creativity and how self-expression is so vital to mental health. So first of my last two questions, what are you working on these days? Out of curiosity.
You know, I'm continuing to write music. I have a few ideas for some new songs, some new single ideas. I've even been playing around with the idea of a Land of Make Believe too, you know, because I kind of have more to explore in that world. And, you know, as you know, the mental health journey is kind of never ending. So I think, you know, I have a lot more to say in that realm. But nothing is official yet. You know, for right now, Brad and I have been getting ready to record his first solo album, which I'm so excited about. He is an amazing songwriter himself. And okay, I'm really excited to announce this.
Ooh, look at you. Yeah.
Um, This is kind of a surprise, but I just got these stickers in. They aren't even on my social media or my website or anything yet. Like they are brand new. So you all are the first to hear about these. I worked with an artist based out of the Ukraine to design these. It's a Land of Make Believe themed sticker sheet. And you know, the artist that I worked with her name is Paulina, and she's actually not on social media either, but you know, I'd be happy to provide anyone with the link where, you know, you can find her work if anyone's interested or wants to support her. You know, we worked together to make my vision for these stickers come to life, and I just think they're so cute and so whimsical. I don't know if can you see them well? I know there's like kind of a glare on them.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
It's gorgeous. A few people in the chat, a lot of people in the chat need them. I'm not surprised by that.
Yes, I agree. You all need these. But so even though they're not on, you know, my website or anything yet, I want to start selling them pretty immediately. So if anybody is interested, please just DM me. And I'm selling them for $10 per sticker sheet. And starting today through the end of the year, 30% of the proceeds will go to the Hope for Us network to support, you know, your mental health programming and your proactive prevention programming.
That's incredible.
So yeah, if anybody's interested, just slide into my DMs. Let me know. I'll, you know, hook you up with a payment method, and I'll ship you your sticker sheet right away. It says Land of Make Believe on the back too. I think they're so cute. I'm really proud of them. So yeah, that's like my new project.
They're absolutely gorgeous. And when it comes to your DMs, I have a feeling those are connected with where people can find your music, which leads me to my last question. Where can people find your
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media at Sydni Budelier on Instagram or at Sydni Budelier Music on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that, you know, I'm working on getting up and running. I'm hoping to have more video content up there soon. If you go to my Instagram and just hit the link in my bio, you'll be directed to, you know, my YouTube channel. If you know, click the appropriate link, you can find my music and listen to my music on all major streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, all of them. You know, just search my name, Sydni Budelier, and don't forget to follow me.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. Can't wait to listen to your debut album again myself.
Thank you, Ben.
Sydney, it's been truly a pleasure. Any closing words, or what do you think?
I'm just so excited to be a part of this. Thank you for inviting me, for having me on here to talk to you about my personal mental health experiences, and to share how my art has allowed me to just kind of release some of the pressure. Really helps. So yeah, thank you, Ben. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Right back at you. And as far as art helping us, I feel like what you've expressed is really in the essence of what Art Gives Us Hope is about, and what art gives each of us hope, right?
Yeah.
Chris Laurie says, Sydney, you are inspiring and truly a gem.
No, you are.
We can't wait to hear your next album and Brad's album. Like it's all going to be incredible.
You.
So with no further delay, I'll give it back to the network.
All right. Thank
Sydney,
you,
it's absolutely
Ben.
a pleasure to talk to you.
Take care.
Bye for now.